My name is Sam Houston. A little bit about my background, where to begin. I spent my youth serving my country and continue to serve my country. I served in the United States Army. I have served as congressman and governor of my state of Tennessee prior to moving to Texas. I have traveled all about this great country, learning and living with my red brothers, the Cherokee, and I have led what I consider to be a rather entertaining life. Before coming to Texas, as I said, I served my country in the Army. I served in the War of 1812 under Andrew Jackson, my friend. I served as Indian agent to the Cherokee. I had a space in time where I was living in Tennessee and I was congressman and followed in my friend Andrew Jackson's footsteps and became governor, and I had an unfortunate conclusion to my marriage there, and after which time I chose to live with my friends away from civilization, with my Cherokee friends. And upon great reflection and discussion with my friend President Jackson, I decided I would go to Texas. I came to Texas, I think, like most people did. I came to get a fresh start on life, really. Texas was quite the land of opportunity back in those days, and I was looking to start my life anew. My friend President Jackson suggested that I venture into Texas to see what all the fuss was about. My first memory is that it was very cold and wet and unpleasant for most of the time. We spent much of the time just trying to stay warm and out of the grasp of Santa Anna's army. But I think my overwhelming recollection is of being very cold and very wet as I tried to put together a suitable force that would eventually defeat Santa Anna on the plains of San Jacinto. Well, for starters, someone had to be taking part in the government as we tried to form a Texian government separate from Mexico, and I was proud to be part of that effort. Secondly, I never really believed that we should have stayed in the Alamo after capturing San Antonio in the fall of 1835. I felt that it was a needless expenditure of energy and effort and heroic blood, and it was never my impression or my desire as commander of the Texas Army that our forces stayed at the Alamo. I felt that it was undefensible, and sadly time proved me correct. Well, there were countless skirmishes along the way as we moved east away from Santa Anna's army, and most of them were we had fortune looking upon us. We were on one side of the river, for example, and Santa Anna's forces were on the other, and we were able to exchange a few shots and make our escape as we moved east to further train the Texian forces as well as gather new forces coming in from the United States. But largely the main battle that we served in during the Revolution was on the plains of San Jacinto. Directly after the Revolution, I spent quite a bit of time on my back, actually, recovering from my wounds at the battle. After a bit of, shall we say, negotiation with the interim president, who I shall not name, I was allowed to leave Texas and make my way to New Orleans, where I was able to seek treatment for my injury that I received upon battle. And I spent multiple weeks in New Orleans recovering from that wound. My time as president was both, are we talking the first presidential, my first time as president or my second time as president? First time as president largely was spent trying to get Texas to become part of the United States. I never was under the impression that Texas could support herself alone without the support of the United States. And so I spent quite a bit of time and energy in my first presidential term attempting to convince the powers that be in the United States to annex Texas. Once it became clear that that was not going to happen right away, I immediately began to play a bit of a game with the United States of, shall we say, like a spurned suitor. I would let my friends in the United States know that perhaps we should become part of Great Britain, or perhaps even France, and just kind of dangling the carrot out, shall we say, to the United States. And eventually that did pay off, but initially it was a bit of a game of waiting and just seeing what was going to happen. But it was my goal to make Texas be able to be fiscally responsible, to pay our debts, to secure our borders with our neighbor to the south, and to largely try to create a government where no government had really existed prior to. As my second term, I largely spent the entirety of my second term trying to undo the damage that Lamar cast upon Texas as far as our relations go with my Red brothers. Lamar had a horrible campaign of extermination amongst my Red brothers across the state, across the republic, and I largely spent nearly my entire term trying to fix the errors of Lamar's ways. I firmly believe that even if you cast aside any of my relationship with my Red brothers, that largely it's much more efficient and less expensive to not be at war with the Red Man. If you're at war with the Red Man, you have to raise an army, you have to feed an army, clothe an army, arm an army, and as you know, I'm sure, money in Texas was in very short supply. So largely my second term was spent trying to fix the damage that Lamar had done, frankly. I was absolutely overjoyed to hear the news when we heard that Texas would be annexed by the United States. It is something I had worked on my entire career, something I've advocated for, if not publicly, certainly privately to my friends and colleagues. And I remember standing in the town that bears my name and watching the American flag go up the flagpole as the Texas flag was lowered, and I dare say I hadn't ever seen a more magnificent sight in all my days as a Texian. But yes, when Texas became part of the United States, it was a very proud moment for myself. I know that my dear wife Margaret, probably a little disappointed with me, as I think she expected that come annexation, that my time as a man of my country would end and I could stay home and raise our brats in our house in East Texas. Sadly for her, and I might say that I was a little bit happy about it, frankly, but sadly for my wife, I became one of the first 2 senators from Texas to represent our new state in the United States Senate. Well, I will say that the Senate has its rules, And one rule that I found very hard to abide by, frankly, was the rule was that if you were a freshman senator, you were not allowed to speak in the halls of the Senate. And I will tell you this, since I had been a president, I felt that elevated my position somewhat over being just a simple freshman senator. And I began to give speeches in the halls of the Senate. And I will tell you that once my colleagues' jaws picked themselves up from the floor, I think they stopped to listen to what old Sam had to say about things that were taking place in our country that could be very divisive, shall we say. But as a senator, I tried arguing substantially that at all costs the Union needs to be preserved, that the sectionalism that the country is suffering from is not going to end very well, and that perhaps we need to start looking at the ways in which we are more similar in ways that we are not. And we shall see if that has any success or not. Well, I think there's plenty to see in any newspaper that you choose to read about my personal life or things that I have done or may have said or may not have said over time. But I will say that there's nothing more that I enjoy more than sitting at home with my brats, listening to my lovely wife play the piano or the guitar, living a simple man's life at home gives me great satisfaction, and at some point in the near future, I hope to do more of that. Not that I can think of at this moment. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this morning.